We are here at the margins of the 24th Credit Suisse Salon, which dealt with the burning topic of energy transition. And it is my great pleasure to sit here with Christiana Figueres, who is the former Executive Secretary of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Since the topic of the conference was energy transition, in your mind, is it happening fast enough?
No, it's definitely not happening fast enough. For the first time in the history that I can remember, we have had burning fires in the Amazon, in California, in Australia, and in the Arctic. There is evidence that the impacts of climate change are accelerating exponentially, which means that we actually have to deploy solutions exponentially. Are we doing so? Not yet in many sectors. We are doing so in the renewable energy sector that is actually already growing exponentially. We're already at 1/3 of the electricity generation of the world on the global energy matrix is already renewables, and we're pretty well on track to be at 50% by 2030. On heavy industry, we are far behind, but we have started, and I think what is important is to realize that all of these efforts are certainly a responsibility, but they bring huge opportunities. They are so much of an employment generator. They are much safer investments. They bring better health conditions, better living conditions. This is frankly, this whole transformation of the energy matrix and the transportation matrix in the world is something that we ought to do with or without climate change. So whether you believe in climate change and whether you understand what is going on or not, doesn't really matter. If you look at all of the measures that we are undertaking to address climate change, those are non-regrets measures. We would want to have better cities and better air and more energy independence and more efficient transportation anyway, with or without climate change. With climate change, we actually have an accelerating need.
Do you think energy transition is the only thing we can do to prevent global temperatures from rising?
It's 70% of the solution, which means it's an important component, but it cannot be the 100% solution. The other 30% has to come from totally non-energy related activities that are actually land-based activities, which is the restoration of degraded lands, the protection of primary forests to begin with, but then also the restoration of degraded lands, of grasslands, of savannas, of peatlands, of wetlands, all of those land-based activities that actually restore the original richness and quality of the soil and of that biosystem, and that help us through growth of the biomass absorb CO2 out of the air, put it into the biomass, and put it back into the soil. All of those activities are really, really important. I often think of those activities as actually being a real estate activity. It's the same thing. In real estate, any piece of property is valuable because of its location. And any real estate agent will always tell you location, location, location. In climate change, we have exactly the same issue. It's about the location of the carbon. The carbon itself is not a problem. It's where the carbon is. So the carbon in the air is an enemy to humanity. Carbon in the soil is a friend. It's all about taking the carbon out of the air and relocating it back into the soil, which is where it belongs and where it was originally before we extracted it and put it in the air. So this is all about location, location, location.
Christiana, thank you very much for this conversation, and thank you for having been with us.
Thank you.